had a long career. I worked for Coast Guard, ran their safety and security program for the Western region for a bit, from the Great Lakes to the Pacific to the Arctic. Was sick of public service, so set up a consulting company, beyond the border consulting here on the peninsula. Worked with a bunch of clients, and more recently with a company in Nanaimo, shipping coastal technologies that actually collaborates closely with Titan boats here. So there was a very interesting peninsula connection. Anyways, for the next few minutes, hope to set the scene for today's discussion. I'm going to touch on 4 points. 1, the call for action in a new age of compounding crisis. 2, how Canada is responding to this new geostrategic risk environment through a generational investment in defense modernization. 3, local realities here on the peninsula and South Island and Vancouver Island more broadly that will shape our success or failure in fully leveraging this new opportunity. And finally, some personal thoughts on how we can embrace the opportunity and hopefully stimulate discussion and take advantage of this generational opportunity. So, let's start with a quick question. If you're sitting in Ottawa, what do you see when you look west? Do you see a strategic gateway to the Indo-Pacific? Do you see the home of Canada's Pacific Fleet? Do you see critical ports, innovation hubs, the future of Canada's defense economy? Or do you see this as a resting place for the newlywed and the nearly dead? For a long time, we've been viewed as a cemetery or a postcard, but that's changing fast. So, global leaders now describe this as a decade of compounding crisis. You only had to hear, our Prime Minister speaking at Davos and follow the news, follow your phone, whatever your algorithms will feed you. But we've got war in Europe, we've got tensions in the Indo-Pacific, friction points in the Americas, American aspirations to take over Greenland and turn us into the 51st state. We've got strong alliances such as NORAD and NATO being brought into question. We've got gray zone activity, cyber attacks, disruptions to critical infrastructure, penetrations of submarine sea cables in the Baltic. The list goes on and on and on. We've got supply chains, trade systems, security relationships that are being rewired. And of course, we've got climate-induced disasters are stacking up. And of course, when countries feel less secure, they invest in defense. And that's what we're seeing unfold now. I would argue that we've got a tsunami of defense investment rolling in. It's the largest defense investment or modernization in generations. New ships, submarines, aircraft ground systems, new surveillance systems, strengthened cyber systems, exploitation of AI, quantum computing, new defense and civil infrastructure, hopefully, workforce renewal, and the epicenter of much of that is here at CFB Esquimalt and across Vancouver Island. If we look to the 2 Canadian patrol submarine proponents, Hanwha and ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems, or TKMS, Hanwha is looking at early submarine delivery in a couple of years, east and west coast sustainment hubs, highly skilled jobs on southern Vancouver Island, based on their strategic partnership with Babcock. ThyssenKrupp or TKMS, they've announced, in fact, recently, a couple of days ago, the launch of a Canadian defense and dual-use innovation ecosystem, linking Canada's existing innovation systems, universities, and technology clusters. TKMS is seeking sustainment partners in C-SPAN. Obviously, they have a footprint in Vancouver. They've got a footprint in Victoria. They're looking at deep integration within the existing Victoria-class support workforce that they can exploit. And of course, their openness on both parts, presumably, to local manufacturing. And here's the problem. As I see it, one of many, and maybe this will eat up more than my 10 minutes, it drives me bananas when I see premiers across the province, First Nation leaders, city leaders or regional leaders talking about teaming agreements, LOIs, MOUs they negotiated, like Hanwha and TKMS. Where is Stephen Fuhr? When is he? Why is he in Korea? Why is he in Germany? Why is he everywhere except taking a little direct flight from Kelowna down here to talk to people on the peninsula? We are doing a lousy job in creating the energy and excitement that brings these people down here. There is a complete absence of narrative creation, and you've got premiers and leaders across the country that are stepping up and talking about the exciting team agreements that they have negotiated. And what we have here, deafening silence. So we've got opportunity though. This is real money, real construction, real long-term growth, and it's going to accelerate for the next 10, 15 years. We are not at the end of the world, based on, Ottawa's perspective. We are at the gateway to the Pacific, to the world, and to opportunity. So before we all get excited about it, let's talk about some of the regional and local realities. Open air drug markets. We've taken it for granted that we're going to see graffiti, vandalism, closed businesses. We take it for granted we've got squatter villages floating in marinas on derelict and dilapidated boats. We take it for granted we've got homeless camps in city parks where kids can't play. As my wife taught at Christchurch Cathedral School, it was taken for granted that you had to watch the needles on the ground when you took the kids outside the school. Why are we taking this shit for granted? We've got businesses closing. I said squatter villages. We've got highways and road networks built for the 1950s. Why can you not drive from BC Ferries to downtown without going through a half dozen non-integrated stoplights? Random bike lines to nowhere, no regional rapid transit system, food and housing costs, growing frustration with laws and regulations that aren't enforced, and 13 dysfunctional municipalities that don't talk to each other. Truly, we live in the land of misfit toys. So here's the key point. The defensive wave is coming whether we plan for it or not. The ships are being built. The base, dockyard, ammunition facility, and fuel facilities will expand. Money's being dumped into A and B jetty. New housing being built for the military. Money is flowing. The demand for skilled workforce growing. And done right, we can completely transform this region. Building housing, schools, healthcare, stabilize communities, modernize resilient infrastructure, create career pathways, strengthen indigenous leadership, grow innovation in the blue and green economies, and scale SMEs like you and generate long-term wealth, which is what we talked about when we sat down with Steph King and had a coffee at the Roost before Christmas. And it cannot be done by government. They operate in their silos. This has to be organic. It cannot be done by industry associations that are hunting for the next grant from Pacific Can. It has to emerge from those people that have skin in the game, and that is you, right? You can't be peeling off your 15% admin fee. You need to be putting in-kind contribution with sweat equity into this to build a narrative and drive this forward. So just wrapping up, I want to talk about, a concrete idea that I think fits rather perfectly into things. A defense and manufacturing hub or center of excellence here. We've got the Canadian Forces Maritime Experiment and Test Range up in Pop Area Whiskey Gulf near the 9-1 Mid-Newts. We've got the West Coast firing areas off Tofino and Bamfield. We got the Marine Technology Center, basically a vacant building out next to iOS in Pat Bay. We got the Pat Bay acoustic range for measuring underwater radiated noise and acoustic signatures. We've got controlled airspace and water space for all kinds of test and experimentation out in Pop Area Whiskey Hotel off Sheringham in South Territory. We've got a world-class bleeding edge opportunity to create a center of excellence that should be the envy of the world for autonomous systems, sensors and payloads, quantum computing, A and I-enabled systems, environmental monitoring, defense dual use, the list goes on and on and on. And we can also pile on to things that are underway, like Borealis. So last year, the Department of Defense launched Borealis, designed to accelerate cutting edge technology in AI, quantum computing, and a bunch of other stuff. And Borealis is connected to national innovation, but also NATO innovation. We should be deeply embedded with Borealis and some of their regional hubs that they're setting up. So, completely wrapping up here, where does the Sidney Breakfast Club fit into this as a catalyst for action? We got everything we need. We've got a strategic naval and defense infrastructure, ports and marine gateways, we've got world-class training and research, we've got innovative FSMEs, we've got indigenous communities that are ready to lead economically, we've got investment-ready lands, believe it or not, some of them on the water, it might not be apparent on the peninsula, but Duke Point, South Basin, all kinds of places. There's loads of investment-ready waterfront land. Blue and green economy, innovation capacity with ABCMI, COAST, SIP, IPC, the list of acronyms goes on, Viatech. Vinny, the thing that you set up, Ray. You're connected across sectors. You're influential locally and regionally. You're able to move faster than bureaucracy because you're entrepreneurs and business people trying to get that next dollar. And hopefully, through avenues like this, we're able to convene real discussions. So working together, hopefully we can paddle in the same direction and ride this wave that's coming. Otherwise, we're going to be washed out to sea in the undertow as the wave passes over top of us. So I'm going to shut up there, and I look forward to the conversation.